Hi, I'm Scott Simpson.
And I'm Sharla Steever.
And welcome to our next episode of Humanity, Human-Shaped Learning. You know, our pilot must have been successful.
Because here we are.
We're doing another episode. This is actually episode number 1, if you don't count the introduction. So today, we're going to be talking about some things that fall into the category of uniqueness. Valuing uniqueness in other people and ourselves and our students, and the role that plays, the important role that plays. So you think uniqueness is important?
Yeah, I'd say that it's important that we all are able to be exactly who we are.
Yeah. You love it when I put you on the spot
I
like
do.
that. When I ask her a question like I'm just setting her up to give it. But that's because I know how unique she is.
Oh, yes.
She's got lots of unique. So anyway, this happens to be my episode, which only means that I picked the third thing that we're going to do, and I picked the article that we're going to talk about. So, of course, what we'll do is we'll make sure that you have links to all of that, and so you'll be able to follow up with those things. But what we're going to do is as we described in the introduction, we'll take a few minutes here at the beginning to do a third thing. A lot of times it'll be a reading probably. Third things can be almost anything. They can be videos, they can be songs. The challenge of doing that in a video format, honestly, is copyright.
Right.
There's a lot of things that we would love to just, roll the video clip, but we'd have some copyright problems. So we'll try to, if we can figure out how to do that in a good way, then we'll certainly do that. But a lot of our third things will probably be readings, as is today's. So we're going to take a look at a little section from a thing that I first came across this. In fact, I think I've got an old book because a friend of mine gave me The Prophet by Kahlil Gibran. It's kind of a, it's a big long poem. But back in the 60s and 70s, a whole lot of people were reading that. But anyway, it's got some pretty interesting things, and we're going to talk about uniqueness, especially with children. And this is one where the article that we're going to look at as well is really has a lot to do with parenting. But I think as we both are parents, but also teachers, I think we can make the connections across the way. The other thing is, I think we have never set out to limit this to just something just for teachers, right?
Right. Right. And, when I think about uniqueness, and we have talked about this too, the importance of placing value on the individual gifts that each of our students bring, our children bring, that we
Absolutely.
have, or anyone really that we're interacting with, that I think there was a period of time, especially in schools, where it was really about kind of, conforming, making sure that every child could do exactly these things in exactly this way. Right. And I think I grew up during that time.
Yeah. Well, I think that was kind of the way it was, because I know, I live in Spearfish, okay, and we have Black Hills State University, which has been a teacher's school for a long time. But before it was Black Hills State University or Black Hills State College, it was Black Hills Normal School.
Right.
And that wasn't just because only normal people could go there. That's what we called it when we trained teachers. We trained them to norm people, And I understand the push for that because, we had big cities with lots of schools and lots of museums and art and things like that. And then we had very rural places out in the middle of what most people would say the middle of nowhere, but they didn't have museums and they didn't have art and they didn't have a lot of things around.
Right.
So the whole idea of norming,
it's about access.
It was about access, making sure that everybody gets access to everything. And that's a fantastic thing. I think the problem is when you get into this kind of one size fits all. We want to crank out, kind of industrial style, crank out students who all look the same and behave the same and have the same exact perspectives on everything. And that's just not even not only is it not possible, it's not even a good goal, I think.
Right. And I feel like at that time, there was also a limit to what we had access to as teachers. Teachers didn't have the ability to put their students right online and access anything that they might need for their learning. And so it was a little bit of a different time in some of those ways too. But I think that now, more than ever, we need to really help students, help our children see the value in who they are. And that they, as that unique being that they are important, and that's a good thing about who they are.
Right.
And that they can, that identity is, we need to help them begin to build that from the very beginning. When they're very young and entering our schools, that they start to see those things that are sort of unique about them as good and valuable and important in life. And that without them, we miss out. If you don't bring exactly who you are, then the rest of us miss out on knowing you. Yeah.
Well, I'm interested to see how this goes, because we're going to take a look. And like I said, a lot of what Sharla's talking about begins in the home. And obviously right now, I think it's always been this way, but we're maybe more aware of it now. Home means a lot of different things. Family means a lot of different things. The kind of stereotype of mom, dad, and 2.5 kids and a dog and a cat, that's really really not just the norm all across.
It's rare.
It's rare, and so taking a look though at how we as parents, in whatever capacity that is, whether it's biological parents, adoptive parents, grandparents, being parents, siblings helping to raise, whatever the situation is, when you're in the home and helping to shape young children, even before they ever go to school, all of this valuing of uniqueness really has to begin from day one. And I'll just take one more side note on this, because I just about a week ago became a grandpa. So you see this brand new human being who is completely right now incapable of doing anything at all for himself, other than just be stinking cute.
And he is.
Stinking cute.
He's really cute.
But really, you begin to realize it would be very easy for me to look at this newborn and like you look at a wad of clay, and to somehow think, I know I've got responsibility, but to assume that somehow I am going to be shaping him into what he needs, or his parents are going to be shaping him into what, well, certainly we're going to have a big impact. But there is so much in a tiny human being that is unique and unpredictable.
Right.
And
exciting.
And exciting, incredibly exciting. But I think that's kind of what, in this little passage, we're gonna put this up on the screen here for you in just a second. This little passage from the prophet by Kahlil Gibran, I think really gets at that idea. And I think it's not just a challenge for us as parents and grandparents, but I think it's a challenge for us as teachers because there's this balance between knowing I've got responsibility. Right. While this child is in my care, while this child, this learner, this student, this young person is in my presence, and I'm responsible for, making the environment what it needs to be and all of that, I have a big responsibility there. But that stops far short of being something where I'm doing all the shaping, that it's all me. And I think sometimes it's hard to remember that. So we'll take a look at this and talk just a little bit about it, as we do with third things. And then we'll kind of open up our episode that way. So, and this is just a small section. It's a very long poem. It's a small section from The Prophet by Kahlil Gibran. Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you, for life goes not backwards, nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children as living arrows are sent forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and he bends you with his might that his arrows may go swift and far. Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness. For even as he loves the arrow that flies, so he loves also the bow that is stable. So I really like this because it reminds me of something. You and I have worked a lot with indigenous communities, and something that I've been told concerning the naming of children in kind of traditional indigenous communities, Lakota, Dakota communities, that they really don't get a name right away. I mean, they get kind of a designator, my understanding. They get a designator of where they fall in the family, but they get their name once the community, once the family begins to know who they are. Once something has happened and they begin to really know who they are. It's like this acknowledgement that this child is something beyond what we could possibly guess or shape. And that seems to me to be a really healthy thing.
I know I really appreciate the part where it talks about that they are not, let's see, where is it? They come through you, but not from you. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about, as a parent, when you have that, like where your daughter is right now, your daughter and son-in-law, where they have this new baby and it's completely reliant upon the parent. Yeah. And you feel in some ways when you're in that stage that is never going to end, that I'm never going to sleep normally again. This little being is taking up every ounce of who I am right now. Yeah. And to shift from that to where you and I also are as parents, where our children have grown and they're out on their own, you see exactly what that is. Yeah. That you were this part of them becoming themselves fully. Yeah. But you're just a part of it. Yeah. And it's...
Well, and that's amazing because I see things probably that were a piece of my influence on both of my daughters, but I see so much that is so far beyond that. Yes. That is... Certainly, I see elements of my wife. I see elements of our family. I see elements of places where we've lived. But I see things that are just them. Yes. And the unique combination of those things is what really makes a human being. I mean, we get things. I know I've received things from my parents. I received things from my grandparents. In fact, in a lot of the creative work I do with songwriting and stuff like that, I tap into those things. I look at advice my grandpa gave me or experiences I had with my grandmother and things like that. And I love to dig into that. But I also recognize that although all of those things are a piece of me, they don't sum me up. I'm something more than that. And I think coming to understand that about yourself is really coming to be able to see yourself and accept yourself as the unique person you are. I mean, you want to feel like you're part of this community, or you're part of this family, but you also want to know what's my thing.
You know, I can say from personal experience here a little bit, there's needs to be a balance with that too. That sense of belonging. I'm a part of this, but then I also have these things about me that make me uniquely who I am. And, you know, I can remember the point in time where a family member, I was an adult by this point, where they acknowledged the ancestor that I'm like. And that was so gratifying to know that there was someone in our family in the past that I have a lot of characteristics of.
Yeah.
But I also know I'm uniquely who I am as well. But I think balancing that as a parent, balancing that as a teacher is so important as our children are developing their identities.
Right.
And who they see themselves as.
Right. And, you know, it would be a mistake to say that the adults in the life don't have a responsibility and a place and a value position. You know, at the very end of this, the other part that really jumped out at me, let your bending. He's saying to the parents, you're the bow, and I think in a way he's saying it to a teacher too. Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness, for even as he loves the arrow that flies, so he loves the bow that is stable. And that idea of being stable and steady, not that you're controlling the direction that a child is going, but that you're stable for them so that when they are launched, when they're able to fly, without a stable place, and I think that's both the home, but it's also the school. And so many times today, the stability of a school that both values the uniqueness and gives a solid, stable, reliable launch pad, for that student, for every individual student to go in the direction that they need to go, and they're going to go in different directions, but to be that stable place and to recognize and self-value. We as teachers, we've got a huge role to play. I don't need to take on something that's not mine. I don't need to live vicariously through every student I send into the world, or feel like my students, if I didn't do a good job, if they didn't leave my classroom being just like me or whatever. But to know that I gave them that stable place where they were able then to launch and go the direction they needed to go.
It makes me think of, as a parent, those different points in life that you are the launching pad.
Yeah.
I think of the first day of kindergarten when you're taking your little one, who I know for me, our kids were with us 24/7, until the day they went to school. And it was heartbreaking. The day that I realized that someone else was going to have maybe more influence during the day than I did on my child. And that was this launch. It was a launching of an arrow, and you hoped you were there and wanted to be there for when they needed something, when they got home at the end of the day or whatever it was. And then I think of, when they took off for college.
Yeah.
Dropping my kids off for college was a breaking open of my heart in a way it had never been broken before. And also a launching, and that stable place needed to remain, because as they launch, there are points in time where it doesn't feel good or right or understood, and they need to be right back with you again.
Right.
And I think as parents and as teachers, we can be that. We can be that place that they come back to.
I think of home base.
Yeah.
I don't think you ever get to a place where you don't need to feel like there's a place where you can go that you call home, however you define that. I know that's difficult, because I know. Speaking from myself, I speak out of some privilege that I have, and I know that we have folks that are literally homeless. When I say home, I'm thinking of that place where you're safe, where the people, the community that you trust, that accept you, that hold you, that bring you in, that you give you that stable spot, whatever that is. You don't ever outgrow the need for that. But I think part of the fact that it's home means they're the folks who really recognize your uniqueness.
Yes.
They're the ones who recognize it and they value it and
They celebrate it.
They celebrate it, and they clap when you launch. They clap when you're out there, when you're heading out. That makes me think of one other thing I want to talk about before we move into the article, and that is the opposite of this. Students or children who labor under the weight of feeling like they're not valuable unless they are like X, fill in the blank. Unless I do exactly or turn out exactly the way mom or dad or whomever, or grandma or whomever, unless I become exactly like what they want me to be, or coming to school, looking around, seeing the successful students or the teacher that they really admire, and feeling like I have to be like that kid, or if I could just be like that one, or if I could be like that one, and they begin to hide those unique things because no one is saying, no, if you hide that, what do the rest of us do? Because we need that. We need you. We need you to be you. And I think that's one of the challenges. And being able to see that as a teacher, because I know I've had students who come in, and I can tell at some level, whether it's at home or whether it's their friendships or their social interaction, a lot of people have said, you know, you don't really have much. There's not really a lot. You probably better just stay quiet and hide it, you know? And the work of trying to encourage them to really bring who they are. Yeah. And that's hard. I think it's traumatic for some people. If you haven't ever done that, if you're in a place, that's where that trust, comes in, building that trust. Because how can I ask someone to really bring their true self if every time they've done that in the past, they've gotten slapped down, and now they don't maybe know me that well or the rest of the students in my class. And that's why building that trust in my classroom is so important.
You know, my teaching experience was in elementary, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grades. And at that point in time, it feels like students are still excited to share some of those things about them that are unique. And for me as a teacher, those quirky things about students.
Yeah, you've got some good stories. You've got some awesome stories.
I do. And it's because they're so cool. You know, it's when students share that real, exactly who they are, there is some quirky stuff in there that makes them amazing.
Yeah.
And so as teachers, as often as we can, we need to point that out and say, because, by the time they got to the end of 4th grade, I could see it starting to happen where they were shrinking back from being fully who they are.
Yeah, for myself, I remember that time period, 4th to 5th to 6th grade, that time period being the time when I suddenly started to question, should I really show all of this stuff? Should I really be honest? Should I really be that transparent? Because there are consequences when you get to middle school and high school, And as adults, I always want to bring this back to the adults, because we talk a lot as educators. We talk a lot about the health of our students and our kids, but it's important with us as well. If I'm in a work situation in a school where among my colleagues I feel like I've got to hide my uniqueness, I don't bring that. That's not what I got to just be professional. I just I can't bring who I am. That's a problem. That's a real problem, because it goes every direction. We can't solve it for our students without solving it for our adult staff as well. Celebrate that uniqueness. So what I'd like to do then is move on to, and we'll put this up on the screen, a little screenshot here. A great picture of this little girl with boxing mitts on. Anyway, we're going to talk about 7 ways to encourage your child's uniqueness. And like I said, this is really aimed at parenting, I think. But I think the connections with us as educators as well are really clear. And we're going to talk through these 7 things. I'd encourage you to read the entire article. But I think for time's sake and for our conversation here, we're going to take a look at these 7 elements that connect with how to value and how to bring out that uniqueness. And I think also how to make sure that we let our children know and our students know that uniqueness is valued and that it is something that they need to share, that they can bring out. Mm-hmm. They don't have to hide it. Because there's this huge cultural thing that if there's something different about me, I don't want you to know it.
And I think a teacher's role especially, but parent too, is to be able to model that, what it looks like to accept.
Oh my gosh.
When you see that crazy, quirky thing come out in the middle of class, that you acknowledge it in a way that is life-giving to that child.
Well, and I thought you were going somewhere else. That's absolutely 100% right. I know when I was a brand new teacher, I was laboring under my idea of what a teacher was supposed to be like, and part of how that exhibited in my classroom and in my teaching is there were certain interesting, quirky things about me that I, for a little while, kind of kept hidden. Mm-hmm. And our students want to know who we are. They want to know our uniqueness. And so they will find it out one way or another. And sometimes it is through antagonism or misbehavior, because that's the sure way to get a teacher to be real. You get him mad at you, mad enough, and he'll be real. And so I realized pretty early on that if I brought my own uniqueness, then that was a gift for them. And they were then willing to bring their uniqueness. And we were all able to be just a little bit weird and unique together, which made for much better.
I just saw a great quote recently that said, weirdness is a side effect of awesome.
Yeah.
And I love that.
That's great.
Because that's why some of us seem so strange, is because we're so awesome.
That's
right?
That's absolutely right. Okay, well, let's take a look at these seven things. And this is by Dr. Robert Myers, PhD, about child development, and it's really focused on parenting. But we want to make sure that we apply that in this classroom setting as well. Number 1, discover. Take time each day to observe your child up close and from afar. Look for those changes. Look for new skills. Experience your child as a person by interacting with them. I like this up close and from afar. And what that tells me is different perspectives are what's required. I know you and I have talked a lot about how a big focus over the last couple of decades has been being data informed and data driven, and certainly our students' data is an important piece, but it's only a piece. And if I only know my students via the data that's been collected via tests and assessments and things like that, I don't know my students. I know their data maybe. But being aware that I need to observe them in multiple ways from different perspectives makes me think of the times when you run into a student at the grocery store, and they see you and it's like weird, like what you buy eggs, what or vice versa. You see them and you're like, oh, I'm not in charge of you here. You're kind of acting up in the grocery store, but it's not my responsibility to tell you to quiet down. It's like, so I ran into my kids at the mall one time. I was with my wife and my brand new, my daughter who just had a baby. And I had this huge crowd of very tall young men who go, "Oh, Simpson!" Hey! And they all ran over, and it was like, oh man, we made a big scene in the mall, but it was pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can remember a student saying that they saw me there and they just about fell over.
Yeah.
They saw me in the grocery store, and it's a reminder of how, in some ways, we seem almost superhuman.
Yeah.
And that bringing that humanity back, that,
Yeah.
I have to go to the grocery store and
Yeah.
buy eggs, or I
Yeah.
have to, go to the mall and pick this up too. It's a reminder that we all have lives that we're living outside of this time that we have together in class.
Right. There's something about changing the environment, the setting too. I know we've talked about before when we work with teachers, just simply getting them out of the context of their school.
Definitely.
Getting them into a retreat setting at a camp or somewhere else. It changes. So observing and getting to know our students and our colleagues, I think,
Yes.
in different places. Number 2, listen and ask questions. Discovery includes truly listening to your child. It means inquiring about how they think and feel about events in their life. Listening and questions. How often do we talk about that?
Always.
Yeah.
It's so important.
Yeah, and the skills of asking, we talk about honest, open questions, questions that are real, honest to goodness questions. They're not just questions like manipulation questions or
Yes or no.
or some yes or no questions. Did you get that done? Yes. Okay. Good. The questions that actually open somebody else up, and then listening to the response. I mean, how many times have you been asked a question and then the person who asked the question didn't listen to your response?
Yes. So aggravating.
I know. You say, "Did you really want to ask me a question?" Because you didn't want to. You apparently you didn't want to hear my answer. So, but I think we can communicate that. I know we get tired, but I think we can communicate an openness by how we respond.
Definitely.
Observe and comment. This is the fun part of parenting. Watching your child be a kid, where they're playing a game, drawing, playing music, performing, learning a new skill. I know you've talked about how, especially at the secondary level, in elementary, I think you see kids in a lot of these different things, but like a secondary teacher, going to the games, going to the plays,
Yes.
going to the concerts, seeing them in these different settings.
It's about showing up.
Absolutely.
It says, you mean something to me. You are valuable to me. You are worth my time.
Yeah.
That I'm going to come and spend my time watching you. It's huge.
And it makes me think that, if a kid is feeling somewhat unsuccessful in my class, I was an English teacher. And sometimes, students that are having struggles with reading or struggles with writing, they may come to my classroom and feel really unsuccessful. If I go and see them doing the thing that they're really good at, that they're really passionate about, then they know that I know that side of them too.
Yes.
I'm not just the guy who's always there asking them to do something that's really hard for them to do. We've got more than that. I see their unique qualities, their unique skills, not just their unique struggles.
Right.
That's part of it too. But engage in child-directed play. Now this is for parents, but I think about how important it is for things to be student-directed, students to have choice, to have. We talk about invitations to do things, and allowing our students to direct the way it goes and to structure things in that way.
Just this weekend, I had a little one that came out and stopped at our house, and we were trying to socially distance, so we kind of stayed outside, but we have a couple swings at our place, and she's just 3, and she wanted me to push her on the swing. And so I went over, and she wanted me to do it certain ways. So first it was to spin her, and then it was to make her go higher. And what was fun was she discovered too that she wanted to do that for me.
Oh, wow.
And so she said, can I play can I push you on the swing? Sure. And so I sat down on the swing, and so she was spinning me and making up those same, is this fun? Is it fun when I do
That's
this?
great.
And I was thinking about how just her discovery of something outside of herself. And she didn't want to do that very long. She wanted to be back on the swing pretty quickly. But it was so sweet to see that and to just play with her the way she wanted to play.
I don't know how many times my daughters did this, but I have little kids who want to play a game, but they want to make up their own game.
Yes.
I mean, they've played games and they know there are rules to games, but then they want to make up their own game and they create their own little games, and so then they launch into that, and so the joy that they have as they lead the family in the game that they made. So it seems to me that in the classroom setting, that's one of the key pieces.
Yeah.
When we allow our students to be, we have words for this. When we allow our students to have, what's the term I'm thinking of? Agency. Oh, you could have said it louder. Agency. When we allow our students to have agency to drive the direction of things, how exciting. And then the direction we go exhibits and provides opportunity for their uniqueness to shine,
Yes.
So, number 5, expose your child to many different activities. Children should be exposed to all kinds of opportunities to try new things such as sports, music, art, drama, science, reading, visiting parks, the forest, the beach, the museums, hobbies. When I think in the classroom, I think of how many times as a teacher I kind of create a situation where there's one way to do this, and it's the right way, and I've given the instructions, and we've got the timeline, and you get it done. And I just haven't allowed for those different, and so if they know they can't really do it very well the way I've asked them to do it, that's what they learn. I can't do what he wants me to do very well. Rather than, I can do this over here. I can do it this way, and I can be really successful.
Sometimes too with this idea, that translates to money, that I have to have money to do all these things.
Oh, yeah.
But, I think when we think about access, there are a lot of things you can do that are free.
Mm-hmm.
Just spending time with your child is free.
Absolutely.
Going outside, looking up at the clouds is free. Those are experiences that help your child to connect with the world around them and help give them those experiences that are going to be so important to them as they grow and discover what they like.
You just reminded me of something I saw a young mother doing the other day. My wife and I were walking on a path that we always go walking on, and we saw this mom, and she had 3 kids. And I had noticed as we were walking along, I noticed these little rocks that were painted here and there. They were just little bitty, tiny, like just, you might not even notice them, or you might think somebody dropped it and then somebody said, oh, somebody lost this and set it up somewhere. We ran into this little family twice, and then as we were leaving and we said goodbye to them because we had a little bit of an interaction, I heard her saying, her daughter said, is this a good place? And she said, oh, yeah, that's a good place to put another one. They had gotten all these rocks and painted them different colors and wrote little messages on them, little positive. And the kids were out just putting colored rocks with little messages here and there for somebody to find. And it's like, how awesome is that? Yes. And how, when you say, well, we don't have the funds to do something, or we don't have the, there's a million things to be done. Mm-hmm. And kids can help us figure those out.
Right.
Kids can help. That was probably the kid's idea. That would be my guess. And the mom was a smart enough mom to say, yeah, that's awesome. Let's do it.
And it's how we're able to spread the goodness in us.
Yeah.
Very, in that case, physically.
Oh, yeah.
With the world. Absolutely. It's great.
Number 6, show patience and understanding. This indicts me a little bit as a teacher, because I know that I was not always patient. And
It's hard to be patient.
It is
all the
hard to be
time.
patient. And I think we also have to have forgiveness for ourselves in those times when we fall short. But I think that's got to be the goal. Patience and understanding. Because, it only takes a few times of losing my patience for my students to learn pretty quickly, okay, let's just not step out of the lines. Your good students, your students who really want to be compliant and they want to be good, they won't step out of the lines. And the other students, they will step out of every line because it just trips your trigger. And so that patience is so incredibly important, I think.
I'm glad you brought up the word compliance, because I really think when we've looked at this, we've looked at some of the research around compliance, that when a child's brain is focused on compliance, it's a different part of their brain being used.
Yeah.
Than when they feel safe and can trust the space, and they know that the teacher isn't going to lose their temper, or they know there's a level of patience that is almost always present here, that I can try and do the best I can and know that I might make a mistake, but this person is going to hang in there with me.
Yeah, and that's what that level of unsafety in my classroom, if that's what I've got because of some things that have happened, it does those two things. The students who are really honestly wanting to be good, they're just going to become compliant. They're not going to step out. They're not going to excel. They're going to become they're going to do what you say. And those others who are nonconformists, who are ready, they're just going to try to test the boundaries, and that's not good for either of them, and it's not good for us. It's not good for me as a teacher. Now, are we going to lose temper? Are we going to lose patience? Probably so, because you're human, and that's a piece of it.
They also need to know the boundary.
They do.
Sometimes the reason you lose your patience or you lose your temper is because they have pressed past what they should have known, probably.
But I've also been really impressed when, at certain times, I've had to say to my students, look, I am not doing real well today. And so I really would appreciate just some cooperation, because I'm not in a great place. I didn't get a lot of sleep last night, and it would be really helpful to me if you guys just hang in with me, and we'll do this, and I appreciate that. That's human. That's human to human stuff. I'm saying, you know what? Like you, I have some good days and I have some really bad days. This is not such a great one, so let's just work together to make it the best it can be, Lastly, encouragement. Words of encouragement can be as simple as saying, I love you, and providing a smile or a pat on the back. That's for parents. I think it's for teachers too. I guess I think it's not so bad for your students to know that you love them. And whether you say that, I love you guys, which is, I think, a perfectly wonderful thing to do, or they just know it because of the way you engage and the things that you've created. And what does that have to do with uniqueness? Well, my goodness. If you love the students who are having a hard time, and you love the students who are teacher pleasers, and you love the students who break the rules sometimes, then they know at least it's not a license to do whatever, but they do know that you love them. You don't just love their compliance, to go back to that idea of compliance. You truly care about them as human beings, on their good days and on their bad days. And I think they return that.
I think the moment, and again, I was elementary, but the moment I would feel like that was really present was when they would mistakenly call me mom.
Oh, yeah.
Or grandma,
Yeah.
depending on
Grandma.
who they lived with. But yeah, when that slip happens, that tells me that they're at a level of comfort, and there are other ways to notice that too, but that was one of the ways I felt like that they were at a place of comfort.
That's awesome. That's a real compliment.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I definitely took it that way. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Although the first time I got called grandma, I was like, I'm not even 40 yet.
Well.
but no, it's more about the relationship than anything.
Well, so a lot of these things are going to all connect together from episode to episode. But what we're trying to do as an organizing scheme is to give some focus on the 4 different areas. And like we said today, we talked about uniqueness. We're also going to talk about relationship, relational learning, and then what we're going to kind of call self-care as well. Those will be the 4 different areas that we'll talk about. But appreciate your time with us on uniqueness today. We're going to wrap things up like we're going to do, I think, every episode with a little parting quote or something to send you away with. So I think Sharla's picked something out here.
I have.
Great.
And it's by a favorite too, Ralph Waldo Emerson. To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. And I love that idea, that we can help with that as teachers, as parents, as those people that play those roles in our students' and children's lives.
And I think recognizing that the world doesn't always support us in that. The world pushes us to be somebody we're not a lot of times. So we, as educators and as parents, we can push back. We can say, no, you need to be exactly.
Can be that launch pad.
That's right. That steady bow.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you.